episode 433 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jess.
And in today's episode, we're going to be continuing our Ernst Lubitsch series. We're going to get lubed up one last time.
I love to get lubed.
One last time.
One last time.
One last time. With 1946's Cluny Brown. And in part one, we're going to talk about movies that we saw this week. But first, a little reminder, get some TIFF reviews, get some reviews of Glass Onion, Fabelmans. It's out now. Decision to Leave. Those movies are out now. If you watch them and you're like, but I don't understand. I need more. Go to cinematary.com. We got some reviews up on that. But let's go ahead and jump into some movies that we saw this week. I'm gonna kick us off real quick after I check my microphone. I'm gonna kick us off with new release, and that is Triangle of Sadness, which won something at Cannes. Is it the Palme d'Or?
Do you like my Triangle of Sadness?
Oh, where is it? There you go. That's kind of about the level of complexity of this movie. Yeah, the Palme d'Or.
Palme d'Or.
Anyway, so Triangle of Sadness, it's the newest movie by Ruben Östlund, who is the Swedish filmmaker. He's probably most well known for Force Majeure. He also did the movie The Square, which is kind of lampooning art dealers in the art world a couple of years ago. This is his latest. It's this one. I say it's a little longer, it's just 2.5 hours. But this one, it's broken up into 3 chapters. The first chapter, you meet Carl and Yaya. They are both models. Yaya is a little bit more famous. She's kind of she's like an Instagram influencer. And this first chapter is just kind of meeting this couple and their dynamics and their relationship and things like that. It's kind of like we're together, but also there's it's more of kind of a business decision over anything. And it's just this really excruciatingly long hour of commentary. The commentary is pretty much just rich people suck, and you're yeah, dude, we know that. I mean, sure, but what else? And he's just that's all I got. I just got rich people suck. And you're okay. Because he spends a lot of time making fun of the vapidness of and how hollow the fashion world is, and the Instagram, the person's whole job is just taking photos for Instagram and things like that, which I'm fine with, but at the same time, for this hour, it doesn't really, it's not really that I don't know, it doesn't really hit that much. Just kind of, it literally has the intelligence of rich people suck, and it's stupid that you just take pictures on Instagram and that's your whole job, and you're yeah, it's kind of dumb, but okay, what else do you have to say? And he's that's it. And then the second part, they're on this yacht, flashes up, and Carl and Yaya are there as well. She's doing it for an influencer thing. And it's just this luxury yacht that's filled with all of these super, super uber rich people. There's a Russian oligarch. There's these British arms dealers. And this, it kind of tries to get into this whole dichotomy between a little bit of the rich people and the help. Because it also has these 2 layers of there's the rich people, there's the help, but there's the help that is below the rich people, but not entirely super struggling, and then there's the help that's the predominantly Latino, Hispanic, kind of the people who are actually having to do the jobs that even the other part of the help doesn't want to do. And so it kind of creates this dichotomy between those 3 places, because it has this scene where the real people who are actually doing all the work are down below just kind of waiting to do jobs and are just kind of fuck this. But then they have this scene where the other people are on top of it, the other servers and waiters and people like that, who are all excited because they know they're going to get this big fat bonus from these rich people if they make their trip amazing. And so the next 30-45 minutes or so is is them on this yacht, and it's a lot of like scenes of the rich people. Like you have this one woman who's the wife of the Russian oligarch who's like trying to get one of the women who works there to like join her in the pool and like enjoy it a little bit. And blah 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 blah. And you have the Russian oligarch who's just kind of just, you know, rambling on about all the money he makes. He talks about how he got rich selling shit because he sold like fertilizer. And it's just kind of, you have all these like, you know, these innocuous conversations of people, you know, just kind of being obnoxious rich people. And then at one point they like get this idea to have like all the people who work on the ship join them like at the pool, and everybody like, and everybody like goes like in the water and like has this whole moment. And that's the same day that they're supposed to have like this very lavish, extravagant captain's dinner. And so they're like, no, you have to go. Like the rich people want us now, so we have to go immediately. So they like have to leave the food and everything. And so rather than like, you know, having, you know, starting to cook the meal and having the oysters refrigerated and things like that, they just kind of like leave the food out. So the food kind of goes bad to a degree. And then it moves on to this captain's dinner who the captain's played by Woody Harrelson, who is easily the highlight of this movie for like 25 minutes. And there's like this, you know, this lavish dinner where you have all these super rich people. You have a storm going on outside, the boat's starting to rock, and you have these rich people who have, you know, oysters that have been sitting out and other like seafood items that they're eating that is causing them to be sick. And so, just kind of think of like a combination between that scene in Monty Python where the guy's like super fat and is like vomiting everywhere, / the scene from Bridesmaids where they eat the bad food and they're at the dress shop. It's like a combo of that together for about 25 minutes. They're like at least 25 minutes. Which
shitting and farting.
Exactly. I mean, there's parts where it's coming out of everywhere. It's just, it's funny for a while, you know, pooping and vomit and farting's funny. Just.
Is that what, but is that the movie? Like, is it a movie that's like just a funny, haha, poopy movie?
Well, I think the thing is just supposed to be like, it's like taking the piss out of like, these are these uber rich, very like decadent, you know, like ritzy people, and they're like now like they're sitting on a toilet shitting themselves and vomiting on the floor, and that's like the joke. And I mean, it's fine. At the same time, you have this, like, the best part of the movie is this, you have this back and forth between Woody Harrelson's character and the Russian oligarch character, because the Russian oligarch is like this proud capitalist, and Woody Harrelson's character reveals that he is this Marxist, and they're like having this like philosophical back and forth while they're drinking and playing cards. And so then they like get to this point where they're just like raging drunk, and they're like quoting back lines, they're quoting back quotes at each other. And like at one point the Russian oligarch is like quoting Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan to Woody Harrelson, who's replying with like Angela Davis and Karl Marx and things like that. It's a little bit like, it's a little it's very on the nose, but also like I think what sells it is just Woody Harrelson is very charming, and makes it a lot more entertaining. But then all of this happening, the storm's happening, people are vomiting, and then this for whatever reason, I don't know why they didn't just like crash the ship. So they didn't crash the ship. They just have like these pirates, like Captain Phillips style, come and like bomb the ship for whatever reason. So then the rest of the movie, the last like 45-50 minutes of the movie is literally whoever survived that whole ordeal is stuck on this desert island, and it becomes super boring again. And I don't know, last week I talked a little bit, last week I was talking with Andrew about The Menu, which is another like eat the rich people suck, kind of social satire thing. And this one,
did you like that one more?
No, I fucking hated that movie.
No?
This one's not.
Okay.
This one's a little bit better thanks to Woody Harrelson, but is also I'm kind of sick of these we really got to think about these Eat the Rich movies. Like, again, like, not against the topic, because inherently rich people do suck, even though people say that and then they kind of want to be rich. And I'm like, no. But to me, it's just not. To me, if the whole thing is just rich people suck, here's them vomiting, you're just like, I mean, okay, like it's it's kind of like a very surface level, like, yeah, this is kind of funny for like 5 or 10 minutes, but then it just keeps going. And like I was talking with people after the movie about, and they were like, you didn't like it, and I'm like, yeah, it just really never said anything. And they're like, well, you didn't have to say it, it could just be entertaining. And I'm like, yeah, it's entertaining for 20 minutes, but then it's a 2.5-hour movie, so you have 2 hours and 10 minutes left, and the rest of it is just boring. It's very dry. It's constantly just kind of beating you over the head with that the director clearly thinks that, who also co-wrote it, like, thinks that this lifestyle is so hollow and blah blah blah, and you're like, yeah, I mean, sure, but like, I don't know, like do something with it, like make something like satirical with it. It really, like, literally has the intelligence of like a it's like a fourth grader going poopy poopy fart, piss, you're just like, you're kind of like, okay, but I'm not
it kind of sounds like the equivalent of like the annoying person you don't like in class. You just put a whoopee cushion on their chair and watch them sit on it, like,
yeah, which again, I'm not saying it has to be like this insightful, but I mean, like, out of the I think that there's a way that you can kind of couch the satire in something that also is just kind of making fun of these this lifestyle without just kind of pointing out, ooh, doesn't this seem shallow, ha ha ha, and so, like, I can kind of see why people have like kind of somewhat responded to this positively. I mean, again, most people don't really like rich people. And so, like, watching them suffer through this whole thing is fine. But at the same time, like we talked about last week, there's so many movies about this now that are kind of like positioning themselves as being this like really this really sparkling cultural critique. And this, like, they're just not, I mean, I just kind of, I was thinking about it, in relation to Be or Not to Be, which we talked about last week. That's a satire. It's making fun of the Nazis, and it's a satire, but it's not. Andrew and I talked about this last week, where, if you look at like the kind of Nazi comedic satires, you have like The Great Dictator, and you have To Be or Not to Be, and you have The Producers. And The Great Dictator is very like Hitler talks and dresses and acts funny. Isn't that weird? And The Producers is very like, let's like walk up to a Nazi and just laugh in their face. And To Be or Not to Be, to me, is the best one, because it doesn't make fun of their ass necessarily, like how they look, or laughs in their face. It like makes fun of their ideology. It like makes fun of how they view themselves inside, which I think is just much more effective. And like this one feels very like walking up to the rich person and just laughing in their face and walking off, and you're just like, that's fun for a while, but like it's not like necessarily a satisfying experience. And for something that's 2.5 hours, there wasn't much satisfying experience coming from Triangle of Sadness. So not a big fan.
Yeah, that sounds just kind of annoying.
It was pretty annoying. Especially, again, it's just so long that you're just like...
I do feel like there has been a lot of movies like that have come out lately that have been like, yeah, the rich suck, am I right? Like, even, what was that movie where the lady marries into the rich family, but then... Yeah. And even Knives Out, too. I feel like there's just been a lot lately that has been like, yeah, aren't rich people annoying? Or Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I liked it. But I just feel like this is becoming a thing now.
Well, it's
where everybody's trying to make this statement, and it's like if every movie, which takes like millions of dollars to make, is making this statement, like,
well, yeah, it's very.
are you patting yourselves on the back, like,
Well, you're just like you're kind of like, well, y'all are rich, you're movie stars,
yeah,
like
like shut the fuck up a little bit.
Well, and it's just kind of like I think again, it's not really getting to the root of what is dislikable about him. It's just kind of making fun of the aesthetic. It's making fun of, like I say, like I think you could probably dig in and make a really cool, like a really interesting social commentary on just like Instagram influencer culture and how hollow and shallow of a like thing it is. But this one is more just, it's just, here's this really hot girl who is not paying attention to anything, is just kind of on her phone. And so I don't know. I don't think people. I think that there's a lot of struggle with making effective satires now. It's just Lubitsch isn't around anymore. He can't make them. Like the movie we're going to talk about later. But I don't know. I'm just kind of it was just kind of a bummer. And I'm not opposed to these movies, but a lot of the movies that have come out lately have just not been entirely effective in my opinion, because it's very much just kind of pointing at the screen and laughing, and I'm like, I'm not opposed to that, but like also if we're just going to do that over and over and over again, it's going to get boring. So Triangle of Sadness, I think it's been playing in theaters and such around. It'll probably be streaming or something soon. Let me see if it's on the old streamers. It looks like it's on, you can rent it on Amazon and Vudu and YouTube and all those places. So,
but you don't recommend it?
No. Yep, see, look at this. I'm looking at, they got top stories over here. Why do all Eat the Rich satires look the same now? Thank you. I'm gonna save that for later. Anyway, all right. Jess, I'm gonna throw it over to you.
All right. Well, Monday night I watched, was it Monday? Yeah, Monday night I think I watched Bullet Train. So that's pretty hot off the press. It's on Netflix. Directed by David Leitch.
Yeah, it's sure. He's the John Wick and Deadpool guy.
It's starring like just about every other famous person you know. It's like seems like a deliberately like star-studded cast, but most people are like barely in it. But just like to give you an example, Brad Pitt is the main character. But Joey King, what is she known for? Like remote.
She was in that. She's been in stuff. I'm trying to.
She's been. A lot of different things.
She was just in that movie, The Princess, with like it's the princess. She's like she's the princess, but she fights, and you're like, oh, that's clever.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I know her from, but I feel like I've known her from something. But anyway, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Who else?
Oh, she was in The Kissing.
I don't know what that is either. Bad Bunny, the rapper, is in it for like 10 minutes. Sandra Bullock. Zazie Beetz, Logan Lerman. Anyway, so basically it involves several different criminals all kind of on the same heist on a train in Tokyo that's headed towards Kyoto. Brad Pitt is the character you follow, and he seems like he's like kind of a reformed, like a self-actualized, reformed, non-violent, but still gets into like criminal work guy. So Sandra Bullock, you end up finding out later, sorry, this is kind of a spoiler, that she's the voice in his ear the whole time. The one kind of like coaching him through what his mission is. But everybody, the several different criminals are all on this train trying to get this suitcase full of money. And it's just kind of like a series of unfortunate events. Brad Pitt's character thinks that he is unlucky, and you constantly see him like just like constantly evading near-death experiences. But all the while, he's kind of like talking himself through every little experience, like he's trying to almost like therapize himself. So his character is always like saying, "I'm hearing a lot of anger," and I don't know, like shit like that, you know. But then there's these two other assassin people who are also after the suitcase. And basically every character in the movie has like a backstory, and so the movie is like constantly taking you to these like flashbacks of every individual's backstory and why every individual is after this suitcase, or what their motivation is, or like how they're connected to each other. And it's definitely like playing up this whole thing, like playing up this trope of, I don't know if, almost kind of like Tarantino, or like in like a Kill Bill kind of way, where you have all these different pieces and you're kind of figuring out how they know each other. But in that way, I would compare it to Tarantino. But I thought for this movie, it was like, to me, the script was so juvenile. There was a lot of cussing, a lot of like fucks, and lots of violence in the scenes. But the way that everybody talked to each other was just very juvenile to me. So a lot of times it just felt really annoying to hear all like the characters, the way they were talking to each other. And the writing was like deliberately in this over the top, kind of overly dramatic, overly tropey kind of thing. I feel like it's gotta be a satire on like action movies, or maybe like Japanese inspired action movies like Quentin Tarantino, has done. But the overly complicatedness of it just felt kind of tedious to me. Like just going into the backstory and trying to remember how each of these characters are connected. Especially when a lot of the characters really just kind of got on my nerves. But
it seems very like tiring also to like be doing, like, unless you like edit it in like kind of an interesting way, it seems very tiring to always be cutting away to people in their backstories.
Yeah, and again, you're kind of watching this like, okay, I'm just seeing this face the first time, and then you're trying to like kind of remember and balance all of these like random people, and every one of these like backstory scenes, again, is kind of this like overdramatic, overblown, kind of silly thing. It's hard to describe. Like how, like one guy, they show him as part of like this whole like samurai crew, and you just see like them kind of like going through and like slicing everybody up. But then it's like set in the modern era, and I'm not really describing it well, but to me, I don't know. To me, the movie was just kind of a little obnoxious. I wouldn't say that it's expected what happens. It was interesting. I think that but it was also super long. I felt like I watched it for like 3 hours. It's just over 2 hours long, and I think that it could have been like a nice smooth 30-minute kind of movie, and it would have been a little bit more palatable for me. But it was just kind of like long and overly detailed, but fast too. Just, I don't know.
Well, it's just like, I don't know. It's called Bullet Train. He's got a suitcase on the train. Like just make it about that.
I mean, if you like kind of heist action, Quentin Tarantino type movies, then maybe you would like it. But the writing to me is like nothing like a Tarantino movie, and I guess I can confess that I, do sort of admire Tarantino. I haven't watched his movies in a long time, but I really did like them growing up when I was first getting into movies. I don't think that the script was anything to compare, other than like maybe just the way that it's shot. That was the weakest part to me, and it took me so much out of it that I don't know.
Well, this is the dude who did Deadpool 2, so.
Well, that's the thing, is like, I think on Netflix it was advertised as, if you're a fan of Deadpool, or what was the other one that they compared it to?
Let's see. It's the guy he did. What's the shoot? People are on the
Atomic Blonde.
Atomic Blonde. I mean, he worked on the first 3 John Wicks. He was the co-director.
John Wick. Yeah, it says if you like John Wick and Deadpool, you'll love this. I like both those movies. I actually kind of do like Deadpool. I think the script is kind of fun in that, whereas to me, it's just obnoxious in this.
Oh, excuse me.
It's so juvenile.
He only did the first John Wick. He was the co-director on the first John Wick.
Yeah. But the action in John Wick is out of this world. I think. And The writing in Deadpool is funny. I don't think it's funny.
Oh, he also did the Hobbs and I was gonna say Calvin and Hobbes, the Hobbs and Shaw, the Jason Statham, Idris Elba, The Rock, a Fast and Furious spinoff. I don't know. I think this dude, maybe take a little break.
You know what? I think maybe I'm being a party pooper. The two people I was with really liked it, and as I'm kind of describing it, I think it sounds more interesting than it was to me when it actually played out. But it's definitely got some twists and turns. It's definitely fast paced. It's Bullet Train, folks. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
It's Bullet Train.
It's Bullet Train, folks.
It's Chinatown moment.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
Stop, Jess. It's Bullet
Train time. It's on Netflix. Watch it if you want to.
Oh, is it on Netflix now?
On Netflix. So.
I might give it a look.
Yep.
I was kind of curious.
Do it. You might like it more than me. Maybe I'm being a party pooper.
No, you're not, because I've seen a number of reviews that were kind of like, again, it was like this, like, just why is this overly complicated? Just make a simple, like, Brad Pitt's on a bullet train and has to defend this package and fights people. Like, why does it have to be anyway? And
I've seen Brad Pitt in a Tarantino movie, and it was funny, but
multiple times.
Yeah, he's funny. I like Brad Pitt too, and I thought his character was just, I didn't even recognize his voice. I don't know. It was just odd to me. Didn't work.
Bullet Train. It's Bullet Train.
Check it out, man. Just watch it. Sit down, grab yourself a bowl of cereal, and chill.
It's Bullet Train.
It's Bullet Train.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go and do some plumbing with old Cluny Brown.
Get your plungers.
After this. Back to part 2 of episode 433 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be concluding our Ernst Lubitsch series with 1946's Cluny Brown, which is directed by Lubitsch from a script by Samuel Hoffenstein and Elizabeth Reinhardt. The film stars Jennifer Jones, Charles Boyer, Helen Walker, and Peter Lawford. To teach her to stay within her social station, Cluny Brown is sent by her plumber uncle to work as a parlor maid in the country house of Sir Henry Carmel and his wife Alice. Brown soon finds herself torn between her attraction to Adam Belinsky, a political refugee staying as a house guest, and the prospect of a stable marriage with stuffy Jonathan Wilson, a chemist. John Cromwell was originally slated to direct the picture, but after the project was delayed due to Jennifer Jones's appearance in Duel in the Sun, Lubitsch, who was only the producer at the time, stepped in to direct. At this point, he had been taking a pause from directing after suffering from a series of heart attacks, and he ended up dying about a year after this was released. Cluny Brown marked Jones's first assignment at 20th Century Fox under a joint agreement between Selznick and Fox, and also marked her first comedic role. Cluny Brown is the product of a wartime sensibility, and war managed to sadden even the redoubtable Lubitsch. His beloved Berlin was in ruins, and with it the pre-war world of elegant farce and decadent sexuality he had imported to Hollywood with his arrival in the 1920s. His Cluny Brown is an orphan, rootless, without home or family other than a gruff uncle, and she works as a maid. For Cluny, plumbing is the most sublime of pleasures. She is searching for a place to wang away at the pipes with a big wrench, for she knows that when she has found such a place, she will be at home. For now, though, the search is fruitless. Quote, I'm an orphan and I've never heard my mother snore, she says, with deep melancholy, and that is the voice of Ernst Lubitsch in a small epitaph for the death of laughter all across Europe in the winter of 1946. The New York Times in 1946 said, Let it be noted, they typoed their own story. Let it be noted at the outset that Ernst Lubitsch has come up with a delectable and sprightly lampoon in Cluny Brown. And let it be known also that from this vantage point, The Offering is among the year's most delightful film comedies. And Variety in 1946 said, apart from its whammo entertainment and box office aspects, Cluny Brown can be recorded as glamorizing the first of a clan, a lady plumber, and a looker no less, the kind for whom stopped-up pipes are a pleasure. Imagine being horny for Cluny Brown the plumber in your review. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, I mean, go shoot your shot, I guess. So Cluny Brown, this is my second time watching it. Actually, the first time I saw it was with you and Andrew, which I know is a Alva Swaff favorite.
It's definitely one of my favorites. I absolutely adore this movie. I really like To Be or Not to Be too. I just wasn't able to be on last week.
What about Cluny? What do you like about Cluny Brown that makes it one of your favorites?
For me, one thing I love about it is the chemistry of her and Belinsky. They connect so instantly because they're such fucking weirdos. Like, he just immediately gets her. And when, like, nobody else around her, like, understands, like, the weird little, like, quirkiness, like eccentricities of her, like, the way that she just doesn't really understand why she needs to inhibit herself or inhibit her feelings, like, to fit into other people's world's views. And, or just like to fit into people's expectations. She just enjoys life. Like, she's just so full of joy and gratitude, and like she just appreciates things, and she just says what she feels, and she's just so weird. And he just like immediately sees that she's just genuine in a way that is really refreshing and safe and like energizing, and he loves it about her immediately. Like, he just loves her so quickly, and I think that it's just so endearing. But I love her joy and her energy, and I think that like just every scene with her is a delight, but also hilarious. Like, I fucking love the scene at the beginning of the movie when she gets drunk and she's just like, I feel chirpy, and then the script to me is just hilarious. Like, I love how she's just like, you know, do you ever just feel something and you just try your best to describe it? Sometimes you just have to come up with a word, but it makes complete sense to you. You're like, there's no other way. And then the guy's like, I don't think I've ever felt chirpy. And then Valinsky replies, nope, and you never will. Like, he's like, you're never gonna get her, but I do. She makes so much sense, and I love her. I just think she's just so silly. Or like, her acting is just ridiculous too, when she's just like, now I've got that Persian cat feeling. Meow. Meow. That scene is so fucking funny to me.
Well, that's what was crazy, that this was her first comedy role.
She's a goofball. I love her. But, I mean, also, you know, speaking of movies that are like, fuck the rich, right? I think that this just does that. That whole trope has been done since the 40s and before that even. And this does it in such fucking fun way, too, where you're just seeing, like, the, you know, Lubitsch is kind of speaking from his experiences, but trying to, like, take part in the joy and the laughter, you know, on the other side of it, while also showing just how, like, completely out of touch the family that they're staying with is. They like, oh, Nazis, I always wanted to meet one of those.
The whole movie, like, that's what, especially the second time watching it, I clued in on how, I mean, the movie, not even just the rich, the movie is like, the whole movie is a fuck you to the British. Like, the whole movie is a fuck you to the British. Specifically, it's clearly Lubitsch is lamenting them for, you know, being sleepy and not immediately jumping into World War II. Like that's the whole like he's not even like making fun of like class systems. He's just making fun of how like lazy and sleepy and not in touch the British were. Like you mentioned, like, oh, a Nazi, I would love to meet one. But like every conversation, it's you have Belinsky who has escaped from Nazi occupied space into England. The whole even like the title card's like, it's a quiet afternoon in London in 1936. The most important thing in town is this dinner, is this cocktail party, and it's constantly like. It's like it's subtweeting before subtweeting was a thing. Like, this movie is a giant subtweet by Ernst Lubitsch saying "fuck you, British people."
Yeah, like you guys are just obnoxious, so obnoxious. Like, don't let people just be people. I think it's
and you're not paying attention to like what's happening around you. You're just consumed in your own little space with your gardens and your cocktail parties and your dinner parties and stuff. Like, you don't know what the hell's happening to other people in the world.
Exactly. But I also like there's a scene with the girlfriend Betty Cream and the honorable. Look at me, like, being so disrespectful over here.
It's the honorable.
I'm just bad with names. There's too many names in my brain. And what's the guy's name? Her boyfriend.
Andrew is the one whose house he goes to. I don't know the other dude.
Yeah, the other dude doesn't matter at all. But he's just going on and on about like all these things that are horrible with the world, and she's like, "Okay, cool. Like, what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do about it? Like, you gonna go join the army? Are you gonna?" And he's like, well, "I'm gonna write a strongly worded email." Is basically what he says, and it's like, okay,
yeah, that's the best. That's the first best shot they take. Is he's like, "Don't you know that the Nazis are trampling all over Europe?" And she's like, "Well, what are you gonna do about it?" He's like, "I'm gonna write a strongly worded opinion piece to the Times."
Like, okay.
And you're like, "Yeah, that's all you're gonna do. You're not gonna do shit."
So it's like, at the same time, I guess I kind of hear that too, right? Like, when there are just all this crazy crap going on around us, like, I can sit here and mope about it, or like, what am I gonna do? So sometimes all you can do is go enjoy your Wednesday afternoon off, like Cluny does, trying to find herself a little husband. And
well, that's what's nice about her, and like Belinsky, especially the character, he's like a political refugee. Like, he's been in the shit, he understands. And like, while they're kind of doing their like false qualifiers of like how much they're gonna get involved, or you have the people who aren't even paying attention, like, he's like, I've been through it, like, it's an inevitable thing that you have to be aware of. And he's kind of like, well, I'm gonna take my time now to just focus on Cluny, who's super entertaining to me. Like, this is the perfect elixir to all the shit that I've had to deal with up to this point.
They're adorable. I just adore this movie. Every time I watch it, every scene, it's just so pleasant and lovely, and it's just so endearing. I don't know. It's hard to even just talk about. What do you think?
No, I love it. I liked it even more the second time. I love how, like, on the surface, like we've been talking about, like, the kind of subtext to it where Lubitsch is getting angry at the British, but like, that's the subtext where the kind of core story that seems very innocuous to the rest of it is, it's just kind of like this back and forth love story. And especially once they get to the town and you add in, what's his face? Jonathan Wilson, the chemist, and you just kind of have that whole dichotomy between him and Cluny and Belinsky kind of on the side, like God, like all the scenes where she's like, in the parlor or at the dinner party with him and his mother, are just great. Those are also just making fun of like how absurd British people are.
Yeah. And she's just so pitiful, saying like and actually enjoying it. You just sort of think to yourself, like, as she's listening to him play that music, like, does she really genuinely sit here and hear those noises and think, wow, I could really get used to this?
Well, that's like, I just laugh. He's just like playing, he's just like rocking out to the instrument. You're like, man, this dude must be like drowning in some girls,
Drowning.
Over there's like,
I love also when Belinsky just like teases him with the door, just like over
Oh
and
my
over and
gosh.
over again. He's such a nice little shit. I love that he does that so much.
His whole thing is just every time he walks by the chemistry shop, he just opens the door and shuts it and then
Runs
walks off. And then
or
Wilson
the
like
ding
comes
dong
out.
fish.
How dare you? How dare? Who is that? Well, and he's just such a like, he's just such a boring person. Like they have the scene where they're just kind of like walking around, and like the only conversation they're really having, he's just like, I mentioned you to Mother the other day. And she's like, oh, was it good? She didn't say anything, which is a good sign. It's just...
I know, I love that they, like, the whole role is just the woman just hacking up her whole entire, like, lungs. Just like, she never says a single word the whole movie. She even coughs her candles out.
Love it. I also love that every time Cluny is doing plumbing, she's like immediately just like slapping the fucking pipe. Like when she's at that dinner party at Jonathan's house, like they're just sitting there in horror as she and the little kid, they're just like sitting there just like slapping it. And it works. What can you deny? No, I like it. I think it's very, this is the kind of movie that I like because it's this sly social commentary. But like I said, he couches it with this very, semi-innocuous story of just kind of like, it's Belinsky's in love with Cluny Brown, but she doesn't realize it till like the very end type thing. But at this, in the background, you kind of have all these other factors at play that are kind of moving. And so like, I like it too, because it's kind of like, yeah, like we were talking about before, like, there's stuff that you can do to react, but right now there's not much, at least for somebody like Belinsky, who's this political refugee, and Cluny, who's this orphan who really just doesn't seem to have like this place of her own in the world. Like all you can kind of do is just enjoy each other while you can. And it's kind of sweet.
And I think, like, I guess, yeah, what's something so sweet about it to me is that, like, I don't know, it's like there's so many... I feel like you can't watch this movie and not love her and not just instantly think that she's just so fun and adorable. And, like, nobody cherishes that. Nobody sees what's nice about her except for him,
Well, it's just that everybody's not, everybody's not paying attention. They're all focused on just these very vapid, very, very silly, whether it's a cocktail party or, the proper jacket to wear to the dinner, or the process of the dinner. Like you think of the first time that she gets to the house and she's having dinner, and she, before she sees Belinsky there, like she walks over with the mutton and goes to the father and is just kind of like, no, take this one. It's the better piece. You should take this piece. And like,
even though they told her never talk to them, like don't pretend like you're not there.
Yeah, and it's that like that whole interaction is funny because like he's like, how dare she tell me what piece of mutton I should get? And then Belinsky's like, well, is it a good piece? Did you like it? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, then what's the problem?
But shut up, right? Yeah, it's like everybody wants her to take up less space. Like they want her to know her place, take up no space.
Well, and fall in line.
Just like be neither seen nor heard. And like even her family, her uncle gives her that like corny ass photo of him just basically like going like this, and she's like, wow, I'll like love you and miss you forever. And I'm like, why? This guy is the worst to you, like, because you hit a pipe one time, he's sending you away. He's
sending you to be a parlor maid. Also, the pure comedy is the head maid and the head butler or whatever, who just like are speaking like the most like in the most stereotypical English fashion, and also are like kind of like pretty much flirting with each other constantly. Like there's like this like sexual tension between them that you're just like, why is there so much sexual tension right here? Yeah, it's that part's also very funny. It reminds me a little bit of like some of the humor in like Paddington, where the humor is like just how proper they're speaking, like they're trying to like process this thing that is like very improper, like whether it's Clooney messing up at the dinner or the scene after where Belinsky goes to her room and leaves and they're just kind of like there's something going on. Yeah, it's just...
What did she say? Like, thanks for coming over. It's just so nice to get a good bang, bang, bang. And so, like, that, and then he just kind of, like, stands there for a minute and he's like, fuck it. And then walks off, like, knowing that she just looks, I don't care.
Yeah, he's just like, he's just like, she's super entertaining. He's just like, she's entertaining. I don't know what to tell you.
And I love, like, too, because I've seen this and Gaslight.
Oh right, yeah. It's like both different sides of Charles Boyer.
Yes, and it's what's the girl's name in Gaslight?
Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah, and the way like the whole movie, so many times throughout the movie he goes Paula, Paula, like he's trying to like infantilize her, and so he's such a shit in that movie, and he's so sinister. And so it's so nice to see, like, him play this soft and loving side, but also just kind of got a little, like, chaotic neutral and, like, prankster in him, too. Just kind of fucking with people, but just doing it in a manipulative but ultimately good kind of way. I love the compares. Like, I don't know, comparing him in those two roles.
Yeah, it's very light and dark.
And he's really good. And I love that he nails both of those sides so well, but both are, like, kind of manipulative. Like, I would say that his character in this is pretty manipulative, too, but ultimately in a good way.
Well, in this one, he's a little but in this one, it's interesting because he also, like, we talk about people aren't paying attention to Clooney. People are also not paying attention to him because, like, you think of the first time he meets Andrew and his friend, and Betty Cream, and they like completely don't let him talk or explain who he is.
And they're just like, we have to rescue you. Let us help you right now. And he's like,
he's just kind of,
whatever.
Well,
sure.
It's just kind of, it's making fun of like this, people who just kind of like pick up a cause type situation. Like they don't really have a firm understanding of what this person needs or if they need anything at all or what. They're just like I have to, I won't feel good about myself and they're sitting there haggling over the 20 pounds and they're like, we couldn't bear it if we knew you were leaving without taking 50 pounds. And he's just like, I'll take the 20 pounds, and if I ever need another 30 pounds, you'll be my first call. And they're like, thank you so much. Great man. No, I think it's really subtly, it's so sly and subtle in how much it just kind of makes fun of not just the British, but like just kind of social norms. Like it just kind of makes fun of how people are so ingrained to act like they feel like they're supposed to act, and how they're so, inhibited by that they can't see, they're missing everything, literally all this wild and crazy stuff around them because they're just so inhibited by, this is the way I'm supposed to act, this is the life I'm supposed to live. This is even like the kind of relationship between Andrew and Betty. It's like that's the thing, like, but by the end it's just like literally Belinsky's in there just like, it's just do it already, like stop being so fucking stupid. It's just kind of it's a great movie of kind of going, these are the rules, like look how boring and just uninspired these lives are if you're just following the rules and the traditions and when you could be like Cluny Brown and just kind of like doing whatever the hell comes to mind.
Fun and laughing and being just a silly Billy sometimes. Like you should be having fun. You should be being silly. And I don't know, I guess I just kind of see myself in her too, just this little person who's just kind of like bumbling around and, I don't know, bumping into stuff and laughing along the way sometimes. And I don't...
You're telling me that Cluny Brown wouldn't be an amazing dinner party guest? Like, come on.
That's right. She would make me laugh constantly. I don't know, guys. I think she's just a lovely little character. I think.
Yeah. And it's one that I think, it's Lubitsch's last movie, but I think it's one that kind of gets, It's not as well known. I mean, I think it got a little bump when the Criterion Collection put a release out of it. But it's one that kind of...
It's a weird movie to describe, too. I keep telling people, yeah, I'm going to watch this movie called Cluny Brown. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, it's about this girl in Britain. She wants to be a plumber, but then she has to be a maid, and then nobody wants to let her be a plumber. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
You just got to see it. You just got to watch it.
Yeah, and it's like I was thinking about after I finished it. It's an easily rewatchable movie. Like it's a very briskly paced. Like I could easily like watch it again because it's just kind of moves. It's very entertaining the entire time. It moves along, but no, it just kind of. It's even for him. It's very like you think of like Trouble in Paradise. To Be or Not to Be. A lot of his movies from like the 30s that are a little bit more well known. This one's his last one, and it shows that even though he dies the next year, like he's not missing a step. I think it's just as, like you talked about, it's just as sly and funny and subtle as To Be or Not to Be is. It's just kind of a weird outlier for his career that I think. I don't know, for people who are either watching along or kind of interested in Ernst Lubitsch's movies, I would check this one out. I think it's really a good like litmus test to see how much you want to be, how much you can kind of. I think this is the kind of one, if you get Cluny Brown, you like really get Ernst Lubitsch.
Do you think that this is the hardest movie to swallow by him?
No,
I think
I think like I said before, it's doing so much so subtly that if you don't get what's if you think it's just like I feel like when it probably came out and people were watching it like they kind of just went, oh, it's this kind of like cute little romance movie, like Charles Boyer, he's known as this romantic lead, you have Jennifer Jones, etc., it's Ernst Lubitsch. And it's just this very like smart movie about that also is making this commentary on like current events at the time. And like I think it just kind of went over, not that it was so smart, but it just kind of went over people's heads also, because it's literally people are all kind of not thinking about, maybe not cluing into what it's doing. And so I think that's why it kind of just got forgotten for a long time, because it's not like as overt with its satire as something like To Be or Not to Be is. But I think it's just as clever. I think it's just as clever and really good. Unfortunately, it's a little bit, it's not super accessible outside of Criterion. I did watch a really nice, pretty nice transfer of it on YouTube, which is available. But
we have a Blu-ray, I think, of it, but
yeah, you have the Criterion. No, I think next time I get some Criterion movies, I'll have to put Cluny Brown on. I have To Be or Not to Be, but I'll have to add Cluny Brown to the collection here. Watch some Clune.
It's my favorite, I think, of all of his movies. But of all the ones I've seen, I haven't seen every movie by him.
No,
he's made a lot. He directed a lot.
Yeah, if you have not seen, like I said, if you've not seen Cluny Brown, it's on YouTube. If you just search Cluny Brown, there's a pretty solid transfer of it on there. That's where I watched it. Or if you have it's not on the Criterion channel at the moment, but they've done. I've seen them do like a Lubitsch set where they've put it in there, so it might be there also.
Or if you're a Criterion sale person, think about adding this
or a
to
library,
your list.
something like that. So, all right, well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies that we talked about in this episode. You can also support the show if you would like. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you so much to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Next week we're gonna be kicking off a couple weeks of Patreon picks. So out of those Patreon people, please let us know if there's a movie, literally any movie that comes to your head that you want us to watch and talk about. Just let me know. Just send us something on Twitter or email or what have you, and let us know. If you're not a
especially if it's Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, if it's something that's silly and dumb like Romeo and Juliet.
No, not that.
We've already done that one, so then we can't do it again.
Can't do it again.
But
God, I hate that. It was so.
But yeah, go to patreon.com/cinematary. You can literally just donate like $1 and then tell us what movie you want us to watch, and we'll do that. So we're gonna do probably 2 or 3 weeks of that before we do our best of the year. So if you want us to watch something weird or wild or silly, or just you're like, this is my favorite movie and I want somebody to talk about it, throw us $1 at least, and we'll do it. So I'll be taking those. Send it to us on Twitter or our email as zach@cinematary.com. Let us know. Be like, y'all should be watching this movie. Or not. I don't care. If we don't get any submissions, then we'll just like pick random stuff.
We're just gonna like get a list of every movie in the world and then just like put it on a wheel and then spin the wheel and then
spin the wheel and then like have to throw a dart for whatever reason too, and then when it lands and then it just finishes spinning and it's like Romeo and Juliet too. I'm like, God damn it.
All the movies in all the world.
Yeah. All right. Until next week. Thanks y'all for listening. We'll see you then.